You walk through that buried cathedral sand, shifting under your boots until the brushes uncover something astonishing. Rows of angels, not pale, not European, but black, deep brown, like the earth that held them silent for a millennium. And in that moment, history starts to breathe again. But every hero's journey begins not with revelation, but with a lie. Ordinary world, they told you angels were pale. They told you heaven looked like Northern Europe. Golden gates, white clouds, white robes, white wings like shampoo commercials selling divinity. That was your ordinary world, where purity meant pale and angels looked like mannequins in a cathedral gift shop. But you always felt something was off. A subtle dissonance whenever the stories didn't quite match the scriptures you read, or the histories you stumbled upon. A quiet ache in your chest when no one in those holy pages looked like you. Call to adventure, then you saw it, for the first time, a medieval painting of a black angel. Not ethereal, not vague, solid, bronze-skinned, wool-haired, radiant. You didn't question it, you felt it. That deep pull in your chest, when something hidden finally makes sense, that was your call. Refusal of the call, but the mind resists truth at first. Maybe it's symbolic. Maybe it's art, not history. They couldn't mean real black angels. You twist verses to fit centuries of conditioning. Polished bronze becomes metaphor, wool-like hair becomes imagery. But the doubt wasn't the problem. The real barrier was what you were taught to believe about heaven. Meeting the mentor. Then came the texts, the Ethiopian manuscripts, the Coptic icons, the North African mosaics, darker than midnight. You didn't need a guide with a staff, you needed permission to see what was already there. And those ancient scrolls became your mentor whispering, page by page, image by image. Crossing the threshold, you stopped looking at art the Western way. You started reading with eyes unashamed. You stopped accepting the default and began asking the obvious. Why would the oldest Christian nation on earth not be Rome? Why would the Ark rest not in Europe, but in Axum? Why would angels described as bronze, fire, and lightning suddenly be depicted as Nordic mannequins? Tests, allies, enemies. You find allies in dusty archives and hidden monastery vaults. You face enemies in centuries of rewrites, erasures so deep they reached into cathedrals, museums, and Bibles themselves. Every time a brown face was painted over with ivory, it wasn't just color that changed. It was connection. It was history. It was belonging. Approach to the inmost cave, so you dive deeper. You pull out the Kebonagist, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, texts older than any Bible in your hand. In those pages, the Watchers are described with fiery skin glow, like polished bronze. And suddenly, Revelation doesn't read like poetry anymore. It reads like homecoming. The ordeal. But here's the hard truth. They didn't just overlook these texts. They removed them. They locked them away. They buried them beneath layers of Latin and imperial politics. History wasn't lost. It was edited. And the biggest test wasn't finding the truth. It was acknowledging that someone powerful deliberately hid it. Hunch. Seizing the sword. You start to see the pattern clearly. Alexandria, Nubia, Ethiopia, not distant missions, not obscure footnotes. The center. Before Rome approved its version of Christianity, African nations were preserving gospels centuries older. And the earliest Christian art. Winged figures with brown faces, curly hair, African garments, awe-filled eyes looking right back at you. The road back, you bring this truth into the light. You show those angels not as anomalies, not as primitive, but as authentic. Because when you claim those images, when you name them, you start to dismantle the centuries-old narrative that told you heaven excluded you. Now, resurrection, this isn't just about color. It's about power. Because the moment they controlled how heaven looked, they controlled who felt worthy of it. And that control shaped psychology, identity, self-worth. When every divine image reflects a narrow worldview, every soul outside that frame feels lesser by default. Hatkamon, return with the elixir. But now you hold something transformative. a truth older than empire. A heaven once imagined in deep brown and gold. Angels who looked like us, not figments of a later era, but the original vision. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. You start to understand that divinity was never exclusive. It was universal, and it was always meant to look like all of humanity, not just one chapter of it. So ask yourself, if the image of God was never supposed to be colorless, if heaven once looked more like the motherland than the mother church, then who painted us out? And what were they so afraid you'd see if the wings were black? Because once the world sees the real faces of the angels, once that revelation spreads, the old story of exclusion collapses, and something much bigger takes flight.